Hello and welcome to this Thursday edition of the World Report. Viewers, I'm Arjun, Samar, Mahendran, and here's what's making headlines around the world. PM Modi has said in a social media post that he will virtually attend the upcoming Asean summit. Now, during the interaction, PM Modi extended heartfelt congratulations to Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim on Malaysia's assumption of the ASEAN chairmanship. Now, he further conveyed best wishes for the successful conduct of the upcoming ASEAN-related summits under Malaysia's leadership. China has issued a stern message to Washington saying Beijing would stop in an appropriate manner if the US did not relent on tariffs. The top Chinese official said that the US should, quote-unquote, correct its mistakes or China will be forced to take necessary steps to protect its rights. Now, Trump recently announced that if China did not indeed take any steps, the US will impose 100% tariffs on Chinese imports over and above the tariffs that he already has in place. Here's more.
Our China stance is very clear. As you know, we do not want this conflict. But if we are pushed, we will respond, definitely. We will fight. If fight, we must. Our doors are open if the US wants to talk. So we keep repeatedly told US government that cooperation benefits both sides. Confrontation hurts everyone. We urge the US to correct this mistake and resolve the issue through dialogue. So if it doesn't, China will take necessary steps to protect our rights. This is our attitude.
The US has announced new sanctions targeting Russia's two largest oil companies, Rosneft and Lukoil, in an effort to pressure Moscow to negotiate a peace deal in Ukraine. At least that's the plan. The sanctions announcement comes one day after Trump said a meeting planned between Russian President Vladimir Putin in Budapest would be shelved indefinitely. These are tremendous sanctions, Trump said, very big against their two big oil companies, and we hope that they will not be on for long. We hope that the war will be settled, Trump said, while he added that I just felt it was time. Meanwhile, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has said that the new sanctions are needed due to Putin's refusal to, in fact, end this senseless war. Further, he added that these oil companies fund the Kremlin's war machine. My colleague Vishal Vivek, meanwhile, gets us more. But first, here's what Donald Trump said.
I don't know that they will. I think that they'll certainly have an impact. They're massive sanctions, and sanctions on oil. The two biggest oil companies, among the biggest in the world, but they're Russian. They do a lot of oil. And hopefully it'll push, hopefully he'll become reasonable, and hopefully Zelensky will be reasonable too. You know, it takes two to tango, as they say, and we're going to find out. They hate each other. These two people hate each other. You know that better than anybody. And it makes it more difficult than it should be. This should be easier to do. But the level of hatred between Zelensky and Putin is very substantial.
Russia.
If we can analyze whatever US has done so far, we can say that this is sort of a curveball. This is a googly as far as Russia's reactions to this whole episode is concerned, because Russia would not have expected that Trump would go ahead and put, sanctions, big sanctions on two of the biggest Russian oil companies. Just to give you a perspective, these two companies, produce about half of all Russian oil. That goes to show the level of impact this can have on the fuel trade across the globe. And that is what Russia is also arguing. They have just said that this could have a detrimental effect on the global fuel supply, and that can in turn have a detrimental effect on the emerging economies across the globe. But all of that is in the future. Right now we can say that Trump wants Russia to yield, because he has tried all the means and Russia is not ready to relent. He himself sounded not that optimistic when he enforced these sanctions, but he's hopeful that this would result in some sort of a peace deal, because that is what the US has been gunning for. It wants Russia to have a peace deal with Ukrainian side, but there are several differences that need to be thrashed out. So far that has not been possible. There have been so many parleys between both the sides. We heard both the leaders in Alaska that there could be some sort of a resolution. That did not happen. Trump's repeated attempts have failed, but this is sort of a last resort from the Trump administration, because as I mentioned, these are some of the biggest Russian companies. 6% of all global output are dependent on some of these companies. So how this will have effect on the market? We've seen that some of the oil stocks have gone up, so we'll have to wait for more on that.
Viewers, we shift our focus to Eurasia now, where Russia launched 405 drones and 28 missiles in its second major round of attacks on Ukrainian energy facilities so far this month, killing 6 people in Kyiv and the surrounding region, and also cutting off electricity across the country. And a day after NATO held major nuclear drills with F-35 fighter jets, Russian President Putin also led a major training exercise involving nuclear weapons. Now, this included missiles from ground launchers, submarines, and even aircraft, including the intercontinental ballistic weaponry that is in fact capable of striking even the United States. Listen into how US President Trump reacted to these developments.
Canceled the meeting with President Putin. It didn't feel right to me. It didn't feel like we were going to get to the place we have to get, so I canceled it. But we'll do it in the future.
Viewers, there could be some big movement on the India-US trade front. That's correct. NDTV has in fact learnt that the two sides are inching closer to thrashing out part 1 of a long-awaited bilateral trade agreement. That's correct. Now, this is one that could perhaps ease tariff pain for Indian exporters and at the same time set the tone for a reset in economic ties. Sources have told your channel NDTV there's fresh momentum in these talks, even as informal rounds of negotiations continue behind closed doors. Now, according to officials who reached out to NDTV, the target deadline for the first tranche is end of November, and it could include substantial tariff cuts on key Indian exports. Now, both sides, we are told, have narrowed their differences and are making quote-unquote solid progress towards an agreement that could further lower punitive duties. Indian negotiators, meanwhile, in fact, wrapped up positive meetings in Washington only last week. Now, interestingly, this development comes soon after US President Donald Trump said he had spoken with PM Modi about trade, signaling a renewed warmth in what's been a frostier phase of India-US economic ties. Now, Trump's remarks, viewers, are being read as a softening of tone after months of sharp criticism over India's discounted oil imports from Russia, which India, in fact, indeed keeps on maintaining is integral to its national security. We get you more on this.
I spoke to Prime Minister Modi today, as I mentioned before, and we just have a very good relationship. And he's not going to buy much oil from Russia. He wants to see that war end as much as I do. He wants to see the war end with Russia, Ukraine. So they've cut it way back, and they're continuing to cut it way back.
A chilling new threat from Pakistan's most wanted terrorist outfit. The banned Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, or the infamous TTP, has released another fresh video throwing a direct channel this time to none other than Pakistan Army Chief General Asim Munir. Now, this matches viewers straight from TTP commander Kazim dares Munir to face him on ground in Kohat, while also mocking the Pakistani military for sending what he calls helpless soldiers to their deaths. Now, this comes after the TTP claimed to have killed 22 Pakistani soldiers in Kurram on the 8th of October. Meanwhile, the Pakistani army has acknowledged only 11 casualties. My colleague Aditya Raj Kaul fleshes further details for you.
Well, this is a big development coming in that NDTV has accessed videos that have been released by Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan threatening Asim Munir, the Pakistan Army Chief, the so-called Field Marshal, self-appointed Field Marshal, claiming that he should not send helpless Pakistani soldiers to get killed in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and the Afghan-Pakistan border, but instead come himself to actually taste the music and sense the music of the TTP in Pakistan. Of course, this comes at a time when there have been various clashes that have been reported between Afghanistan and also Pakistan. There's been a ceasefire that has been reached after negotiations in Qatar. But at this moment, of course, there are several attacks that have been launched by the TTP against the Pakistan Army, the Frontier Corps and the Pakistani police forces, particularly in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, but also in Balochistan and other areas of Pakistan. As of now, of course, there are multiple videos that have been released by the TTP. This is also of an attack that took place in Khurram Agency of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa on the October 8th, where the TTP claims that 25 Pakistani soldiers were killed. A lot of ammunition, including AK-47 and AK-56, were recovered, and Pakistani army vehicles were also captured by the TTP. The Pakistan Army on its part says that only about 11 Pakistani soldiers were killed in that attack on October 8th. Even as the TTP's attacks against the Pakistan Army continue, new videos clearly indicate that all is not well in Pakistan. The security situation is deteriorating, and the TTP continues to launch massive attacks against the Pakistan Army. In fact, one of the attacks and the videos released of the attack is of Kazim, who's the top commander of the TTP, and the Pakistan's KPK government has just put a bounty of several million against Kazim, who's the top commander of the TTP. What will be the role of the Pakistan Army now remains to be seen, but TTP continues its anger and its terror activities against the Pakistan Army across the KPK.
We shift our focus westwards, where the US government shutdown on Wednesday entered its 22nd day. Viewers, more than 3 weeks, becoming the second longest federal funding lapse ever, with still no end in sight whatsoever. Now, this milestone means that the two longest shutdowns have both occurred while President Donald Trump was in office. The longest shutdown began, for perspective, in December 2018 in Trump's first term, and dragged on for nearly 5 weeks into 2019. The shutdown stemmed from a dispute about funding Trump's contentious immigration policy. The current shutdown, meanwhile, resulted from Senate Democrats refusing altogether to vote for a short-term government funding bill sponsored by Republicans. Why? Because it lacked additional spending on healthcare and other provisions. My colleague Priyanka Deo gets us more straight from Washington, D.C.
Even though you can probably see traffic moving behind me, much of the U.S. government has actually come to a standstill. It is now, as you said, day 22 of the government shutdown, and both parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, are refusing to compromise over here. The fight this time, this particular shutdown, is about healthcare funding. This is the money that the U.S. government gives people to help pay for their medical insurance. So those extra subsidies actually end at the end of 2025. So the end of this year, and Democrats actually want to extend them as part of the new budget. They say that if they're not extended, millions of people, millions of Americans could see a sharp rise in their healthcare costs. But President Donald Trump and Republicans are actually holding their ground here. They insist that the government must reopen first, so the shutdown must end. And only after that will any negotiation take place, whether it's discussing these subsidies or actually reversing earlier spending cuts under the One Big Beautiful Act that was passed this past summer. Now, Democrats have accused President Trump of being disengaged, but his supporters, the Republicans, actually state that he is holding ground. They argue that he's standing strong on what is essentially a key campaign promise that he made to win the election, and that is to clean up waste in government spending, especially in programs like Medicare and healthcare insurance. He says that this has been taken advantage of for years, and Trump has repeatedly stated that he does not want to cut benefits for people that need it, but he does want to eliminate fraud, which has costed taxpayers, so again, the citizens, millions and billions of dollars.
Across the northern frontier, Prime Minister Mark Carney has set a goal for Canada to double its non-US exports in the next decade or within the next decade, saying American tariffs are causing a chill in investment. Now, Carney, who will release his government's first budget on the 4th of November, said Wednesday many of Canada's former strength based on close ties to America have indeed become vulnerabilities now. That's the same sentiment showed by many of its allies, including countries like Japan and also India. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump has been threatening Canada's economy and sovereignty with tariffs, most offensively by Indeed claiming that Canada could very well be the 51st American state. Listen into what Carney had to say on this.
But this process, this decades-long process of an ever closer economic relationship with the United States, is now over. And as a consequence, many of our former strengths as a country, former strengths more particularly as our economy, strengths based on close ties to America, have become our vulnerabilities. And as a result of that, the jobs of workers in our industries most affected by the U.S. tariffs in autos, in steel, in lumber, are under threat. And our businesses are holding back investments restrained by the pall of uncertainty that's hanging over all of us. Our relationship with the United States will never again be the same as it was, even though in this new world of protectionism, we have the best trade deal of any other country, and we're working to make it even better still.
In Latin America, viewers, opposition groups demonstrated Wednesday against the policies of Argentine President Javier Milei and his new economic agreement with the United States. Now, the street demonstrations come just days before Sunday's midterm elections to renew Congress, where Milei will in fact face the challenge of securing the largest number of legislatures possible to guarantee governability and the approval of key economic reforms, literally. Now, these elections are going to be held amid growing social discontent over the stagnation of the economy and the sheer loss of Argentine's purchasing power. In fact, it will also be watched closely by the market and the United States. Meanwhile, here's what protesters are opining on the streets of Argentina.
Estados Unidos ha tenido siempre la idea de que América es de ellos y América no es de ellos. Cada vez que nosotros hemos organizado una política regional que nos ha permitido pararnos en plan de igualdad, no solo ante Estados Unidos, sino ante, por ejemplo, la Unión Europea, ellos han hecho lo posible para humillarnos.
Well, with that, it's the time we step into a short break. Viewers, much more lined up on the other side. Don't you go anywhere. Welcome back, viewers. You're watching the Thursday edition of the World Report. I'm Arjun, Samar, Mahendran, and now we move on to updates from the world of business, where Tesla's reportedly record quarterly revenue, but a sharp drop in profits. Now, this comes as US buyers rush to take advantage of a key electric vehicle tax credit before it expired last month in September. Meanwhile, revenue for the quarter ending in September rose 12% year-on-year to a record $28 billion. However, just wait up, profits fell 37%, weighed down by higher research expenses and also tariff-related costs that Washington is forced to incur. The world of sports, the NFL is not planning to replace Bad Bunny as the Super Bowl halftime performer, according to Commissioner Roger Goodell. The decision has drawn criticism from US President Donald Trump and others as well. Meanwhile, Goodell addressed the situation at a press conference, emphasizing that selecting artists often leads to pushback. Bad Bunny, a popular Puerto Rican artist known for his opposition to Trump, will be performing in Spanish, in fact, during the Super Bowl scheduled for the 8th of February at California's Levi's Stadium.